here, Bonnie?
Yeah, hello and welcome. So we are here today to give you tools for making the most of your school from home life this fall. And I'm a freelancer. Ethan has been a freelancer, runs his own business. And, we've gone through the learning curve of having to structure our own time without external deadlines being imposed from the outside. And, we just wanted to share some of those tools with us, or with you, that we've learned on our journeys. So it's really, mostly about managing your time, but also just about deciding in advance, where do you want to spend your time and how can you align those priorities most with your values?
Totally. Yeah. And I want to, like, my context coming into this is like, I am like an artist kid who just was like a creative type who went to college for theater and then, studied writing, but I like wasn't super, like, I was kind of a procrastinator. And then some like things have happened in my life, like in my 20s mostly, where I had to like learn how to overcome procrastination, how to actually get things done when I started to like work for myself. And so a lot of this stuff is not coming from like, from me, at least from my perspective, like I am an expert in this and I've always been an expert. It's like I had to learn this stuff because I'm kind of in some ways, I've been a disorganized person, and disorganized is like really loaded, but I'm somebody who had to like learn these structures. So I'm coming from that perspective. So it's not like I've always been in shape. It's like, no, y'all, I lost the weight and you can do it too. So.
Yeah, and it is a learning curve. And I think it's not one that, these aren't skills that most schools teach us unless you go to a really sort of radical democratic school. Most schools don't teach us how to manage our own time. We're sort of taught to follow directions and sort of meet goals that are set for us. But so it is a learning curve in the beginning where we have to sort of build those muscles, like you're saying, Ethan. But then once you can get in your groove and you find your stride, it can be so satisfying because you're doing it yourself. Like the motivation's coming from inside, and you can really make time for the things you want to make time for while still, meeting all the marks that, you want to meet. Yeah, so like for me, like when I'm, working on my own, when I set my own schedule, I can pick up my daughter from school at 3 p.m. and, set out a, chunk of time in the afternoon to spend with her. I can just sort of work my day around that, which is kind of nice.
And one of the cool things that you said in like preparation for this is like, you as students who are on this have become freelancers. Like you're having to manage, whether it's hybrid education or, just completely online, and you're having to suddenly, you have all this unstructured time. Now, you've been dealing with this for whatever, 5 or 6 months through COVID. But if you're not already sort of doing online learning, like this is like a thing. So anyway, we're talking about how do you manage the thing. Bonnie, will you give folks just a little bit more? I'd love just them to hear like your bullet points, your bio.
About me? Yeah. So I live in Seattle. I grew up in this area, and in high school, I actually did self-directed learning. Ethan, you're frozen for a moment. Oh, there you are.
Sometimes I just will freeze. How about that? I'll just like pause.
In high school, after my freshman year, I decided to go an alternative route, and I did self-directed learning for a few years. And I supplemented that with correspondence courses and community college. And then I ended up finishing high school in Norway, doing the IB. And I took a gap year after that, which I advocate for everybody, and got a job and came back to my hometown, actually, and just spent a year living here and working. And then went to college at Stanford and studied history, and that's where I got really into podcasting. And then I did a master's degree. I went back to Scandinavia, lived in Sweden for a couple more years, and before I came home. So I've been home now for about 8 years. I work as a writer and an academic coach. I'm an essay coach with the College Essay Guy, which is how Ethan and I met. And I'm also working on a podcast right now. So I'm doing, the self-directed learning exercise myself, where there's no deadlines, there's no structure, but every day I have to make time for my project. And when I do, I feel really good because I get this sort of sensation of I am a person who gets things done and makes progress towards my goals. Mm-hmm. So it's an identity thing that can develop over time where you start to build self-confidence. Not that I'm all the way there yet. So that's who I am. And, Here, I want to just give you a little brief bullet point outline of the tools we're going to cover today, and then I'm going to do one, and then Ethan's going to do a few, and we'll go back and forth. So the main thing, here's our five main points that we would love for you to take away today to help you make the most of homeschooling this year, or this fall at least. One is to find ways to cope with stress. It's a stressful time, and we've got to have tools for coming down from those like fluttery, panicky moments. So we're going to give you a tool for that. The second is to eliminate distractions to the extent that you can. And you can. There's a lot of tools out there for doing that. And also just boundaries you can set. So we're going to give you some tips on that. The third is to set up a workspace that you look forward to going to every day. Make that a positive space. A sense of where you get a sense of refuge and calm, to the extent that that's possible. I realize it's not always. And the fourth, I think I just said fourth, but this is actually the fourth, is to make your work schedule in advance. So at least one day in advance, have a rough idea of what your agenda is for the next day. And we have some tools for that. And then the last one is to find partners and collaborators. So we have some tips for working in partners, working in groups, ways of not getting stuck in the rabbit hole of your own mind. Collaborating is the best.
That all sounds great. I'm excited.
All right, so the first one, and feel free to ping with any questions on the way. If you've got questions, put them in the chat box. Ethan, maybe you can keep an eye on that while I'm
I'll do it.
Doing the first exercise. Okay, so this is our first exercise. I actually saw this for the first time on Elizabeth Gilbert's Instagram feed. Elizabeth Gilbert's one of my favorite writers. I don't know if you know her. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love. She's a master of mindfulness, I think, and shares a lot of tools. And so this one is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it's really simple. We're going to do it together right now. And what it is intended to do is to bring you out of thinking about the future or the past and to bring you into the present moment. And present moment is, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, present moment, perfect moment. The more that we can be just where we are when, in the moment that we're in, the more energy and creativity we're going to free up rather than spending time worrying about the future or the past. So this is a present moment technique. And we're going to acknowledge 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And so I'm going to set a timer for 30 seconds. I want you to acknowledge 5 things you can see around you. You can type them in the chat box, actually. It's kind of fun to share with everybody. It's fun to see them in. So I can see my pencil case. You can see my lamp on my desk. I can see the trees outside my window. I can see the cactus on my windowsill. I can see my scratched up hardwood floor. Okay. All right, now I want you to acknowledge 4 things you can touch, 4 things that your body is right now touching, anything in contact with you. So I'm touching my desk. My shirt is touching my shoulders. I am touching my chest. And my legs are touching my chair. All right, now 3 things you can hear. It gets a little harder as we go. 3 things you can hear. outside of your body, preferably. I can hear Ethan's sound through the computer in my headphones. If I take my headphones off, I can hear the tinkle of my kitten's bells. I can hear a car going by outside. Okay, 2 things you can smell. I think I can smell my desk. It's made out of wood. I can smell my laundry detergent. All right, and 1 thing you can taste. I can taste this smoothie I drank about a half hour ago, kind of. Okay, so that's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I use that when I come sit down at my desk and I'm not feeling ready to work yet. I'm feeling like a little bit disheveled from the day. So if I get at my desk and I'm like, oh, wow, what do I do next? I can use that to sort of arrive before I start working. All right, so that's 1 technique. There are many, many of those, and you can Google them, like mindfulness-based stress reduction. And there's all kinds of cool exercises you can do. All right, the second technique we want to share with you is to eliminate distractions. And this will save your creative, productive life. So, it's mostly just about setting up healthy boundaries that can protect us from the unintended consequences of the digital ecosystems in which we live. So, social media, a lot of it is designed to be addictive. So if those are loops that you get caught in, there's nothing wrong with you. They're designed to be like that. And so we really have to be intentional about how we use those tools and use them to our benefit and not let them get the better of us. So 1 option for social media especially is to just get rid of all your social media accounts. And I know a lot of very creative, very productive people who have done that because they're like, nope, I don't have time. I can't waste my time, scrolling. So they just cut it out completely. I haven't done that because I use Facebook especially to keep in touch with old friends that I otherwise wouldn't know how to get a hold of. Okay. So, yeah. And Facebook actually has been a problem for me. And maybe I'm sort of like, marking my generation here because I think Facebook's kind of an old person thing right now. But what I just did, 1 thing I just did was I went into my friends' settings in my Facebook account and I unfollowed all my friends and all the groups that I belong to. So I no longer have a news feed, but I can still see events and I can still message with people. And if I need to get a hold of somebody, I have that platform to get a hold of them. And if I'm curious about someone, I'm like, oh, I wonder what my friend Jovica is up to in Serbia. I can go into his page and see what he's posted recently, but it's not coming up in my newsfeed, and I don't have the temptation to go there to scroll. So that's 1 thing I just did. There are also apps and softwares that you can buy to eliminate the newsfeed of Facebook, Instagram, platforms like that. So there's an app called Feedless, which just sort of eliminates the newsfeed, but you still have all those other functions of these platforms. We are going to send you, just so you know, I'm not going to link to everything here. We're going to send you a follow-up email tomorrow with all of these resources summarized, so you don't have to take notes or anything. We're going to send you a 1-page resource with all these links. But just so you know, there's an app called Feedless, which helps eliminate those tempting features of some of these platforms. The second part about eliminating distractions is, I think, multitasking. And one of the things we cover in the Uncommon curriculum is we sort of debunk the myth that multitasking is an effective work approach. Multitasking is a myth. Your conscious brain can only do one thing at a time. And so you can go from one task to another and then back, but your brain uses a lot of energy in those transition moments. And so it slows your process way down. So one technique that I use to help eliminate the risks of multitasking is to separate my work process into a research phase and then like a writing phase. I mean, I'm a writer, so my creative time is writing, but it could be the same for, say, if you're working on an academic project, like you're writing a paper, or even your math homework and you need to, look at a tutorial before you do the math problem, or anything where you have to do something where you're using a lot of, where you have to think and create. So I separate the research from the doing. And that means that I can spend a lot of time on the internet doing research, taking notes, and keep track of all that, and then move on to my writing process. If I try to do the research while I'm writing, I can go down a million rabbit holes on Wikipedia and not get any of my writing done, and sort of end up with this frustrated feeling at the end. So I just like to separate those phases of the work out. And while I'm writing, I have a commitment to not do research, and so I'll turn my Wi-Fi off. And that's a really nice boundary to set if you're doing something that needs intense focus or creativity. Just turn your Wi-Fi off and focus on that one thing and that one thing only. I know this is a really hard thing to do, but it's really satisfying because you can get 1 hour, 2 hour blocks of uninterrupted time. All right, the third thing you can do is you can disable all notifications on your desktop. So if you're working on a Mac, you can disable notifications for iMessages, emails, all that stuff. So nothing's popping up on your screen while you're working. I did that a long time ago. I haven't missed them at all. And you can do the same thing on your phone. And after this, we'll send you a guide to how to set up the notifications on your iPhone so that your iPhone becomes your friend and not your foe. So disabling notifications of all kinds, the badges, the I don't even know, the banners, there's all kinds of different things that you can set. When I open my phone, my email icon never tells me how many emails are in my inbox. I just don't want to know until I'm interested in opening my email. Otherwise, I'm tempted to check my email every time I get a new message, and it may or may not be relevant to what I'm doing in that moment. Again, we'll send out a guide for how to do this. The last point on eliminating distractions is music. Both Ethan and I, we talked about this before, we both love working to music, but it's got to be the right kind of music. Mm-hmm. And there's no universal, the right kind of music to work to. Ethan and I have different preferences, even just between us. But there are some things, music should be helping you calm your body down, and it should not be distracting you from the thing you're working on. And so whatever kind of music that is for you, go there and use that. If you find yourself feeling less focused, or you're spending a lot of time toggling between different artists or playlists or whatever, that's a distraction. Turn it off. It's better just to not have it. So after this, in our one-page guide, we'll send you some of our favorite Spotify playlists. We've got some good ones, and there's a lot of variety there. And you can see if some of those work for you. It ranges from like Baroque music to like sort of like electronic focus.
Yeah, I like the electronic focus. I've listened to it so much, that Spotify playlist, that it's like a CD that you listen to and all the tracks. And it's like 150 tracks long. But anyway.
Yeah. So that's the point on eliminating distractions. And kind of in a similar vein, so this is technique number 3, and then I'm going to hand it over to Ethan, is setting up your workspace. We have a guide we're going to send you, but I think the main thing about setting up a workspace is that you clear the space of what Jessica Abel's a creativity coach whose work I really admire. She calls them open loops. So if your desk is cluttered with little scraps of paper where you've got ideas jotted down, and you're in high school, so you probably don't have bills to pay, but I'm 36, I've got bills to pay, or books that you want to read or magazines that you want to read, if that's cluttered in your desk, those are all open loops, and they're all using little, parts of your processing space in your brain. And so eliminating those open loops will, again, free up more creative space and make the arriving at your desk a more pleasant experience, because then you arrive to a clean slate. And like that can translate, for some people more than others, I think, to mental clarity. Mm-hmm. So when you go through your workspace, you can sort of do the Marie, Kondo thing and say, does this spark joy? If it doesn't, get rid of it. For me, actually, this object is like a permanent resident on my desk and does spark joy, so I leave it here. But if it doesn't, move it somewhere else. And the main thing that I think is super helpful in setting up a great workspace is creating a filing system. So if you've got a lot of open loops and you're not ready to quite get rid of them, but you don't know where to put them, you can create a little inbox for those things where they go and live and they have a peaceful existence outside of the processing space in your brain where you can get to them later. So if that's actually creating a filing system, like you get like a 3-ring binder or a file folder with different files in it, you can tuck those things away and come back to them later, but they're not taking up open loop space in your mind.
Yeah, mine is my closet. If you were to see what's in my closet, it's just like, it's actually organized because I organized it a couple weeks ago, but it's totally the space. Like I love at the end of my day to like see blank, just nothing. I've got couch, lamp, chair, and like that's it. I didn't even have.
Yeah, and I just found this, I think, at a thrift store, and this is my open loop space. And I do have a filing cabinet, so I've got like a tiered system. This will eventually go into a filing cabinet. I'm not going to file paper every day. So when this gets full, I spend, 45 minutes filing it away. But at least I know those things are there and I can get to them, but they're not taking up space on my desk.
Right.
And that's the main thing. If space is short in your apartment and, you live with a bunch of other people and there isn't a place where you can work reliably, a really good thing to have is a desktop, like a lap desk, I guess, which is sort of like a pillow that can sit on your lap, where you can sit and set your book or set your computer and work. And even that little trick, just having something portable. See?
I'm on my computer on my desk right now in case I end up.
It can signal to your whole mental, and physical system, okay, it's work time. I'm going into my workspace, and set you up for success. Pro tip. Leave your phone outside of your workspace. If it's a distraction to you, put it in another room. Definitely don't sleep with your phone in your room.
You're going to say that.
Don't sleep with your phone in your bedroom. I don't know how many times we have to tell ourselves that, but we have to tell ourselves that. Also, if you're trying to work and your phone is a distraction, especially if you're like listening and doing and communicating and working and scrolling and shopping, just get rid of the thing. And, make the time to really focus on one thing. Okay, handing it off to Ethan.
Okay, cool. Do you want to talk about habits first, or do you want me to talk ideal week first? What do you think?
Why don't you do ideal week and then we'll do habits? It goes nicely after.
So one of the exercises that I came across, I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago, is this exercise called Ideal Week. It's from Michael Hyatt, a guy who's like one of those coaches, kind of like a Tony Robbins type guy. And it was just a simple spreadsheet. I'm going to show you mine in just a second, where you basically map out what would your perfect week look like. Now, I'm going to show you one of mine from earlier this year. This is not like, the one that I have now, because I'm not, it's going to look, well, I'll share it with you and then I'll talk about it. So here's the ideal week that I mapped out when I was doing mine earlier this year. So here it is, Ethan's ideal week, 2020. And this was what I was actually doing, y'all. I was actually getting up at 5:30 and meditating. This is before peak season. So like right now, this is totally shot. But the value of this for me was it helped me see, okay, I can actually get some me time before my daughter wakes up. Because as soon as my daughter wakes up at 7:15, my daughter Zola, it's breakfast time. And so this is sort of like, the blue time is like basically getting my daughter to school, whether that's online school or whatever that is. And then, for me in the morning time, 9 to 12 is like writing. And I try to stagger, put writing on one day and meetings on the other, writing meetings. And then I just leave 12 to 5 for open work time for whatever that looks like. Fridays are a day that I spend with her, and she goes to like mini ninjas class. So that's a day I go to. So blue is like Zola time basically, and my, time with my wife. And then, so Fridays are a lot of, I don't work as much. I do work a little bit on Saturdays to kind of check in, and then blue, I don't work at all. So part of this, like Bonnie was saying, is, how do you set up some boundaries? And for me, the way this was useful is setting up, okay, I know that I'm not going to, for example, like one of the boundaries that came out of this for me is like, I'm not going to check my phone before 9 a.m., like check my email, because as soon as I do that, as soon as I check my phone, my brain is gone. There's this really interesting thing on, it's called Explained. It's a little series on Netflix. It is like 15-minute videos. And one of the videos on coding is really amazing. It's on like programming and coding. And one of the programmers explains coding. Like if I could explain coding to another, like to an alien, it would be, I'm going somewhere with this, trust me. It would be, it's almost like when you see people on their devices, they're in another world. And that world was built on coding, which is kind of a cool concept. When I check my phone before 9 a.m., I go to that other world. And I might be like physically with my daughter, but my head is like somewhere else. And so for me, I have to like set that boundary for myself. Mapping those things out helps me do it. And I have to like, even at the end of the workday, I have to have something to transition sort of mentally from at 5 p.m., Pacific, when I end, I need something to transition because I'm still in that other world. So anyway, that's something that's been useful for me, sort of charting it. And here's the thing is the ideal week could change. Like it's time for me, and this is actually inspiration for me to do it, to update my ideal week, because it doesn't look like that anymore. And I haven't done one in a couple months. So this is something that you can kind of change, but we'll send you out a little, simple guide, a way that you can, create this for yourself if you want. This is not something that I look at every day and I like beat myself up, with this. It's like, I didn't do my ideal week. It's just sort of like a guideline. And it's also going to help me look realistically at like, what do I want my life to look like? Not necessarily, I can kind of dream what do I want my life to look like. And then realistically, like, does my life, like Sarah, you were saying in the chat, like you want more balance, more time. Well, then how are you actually spending your time? Part of the ideal week thing can help you kind of map that out. So that's ideal week.
Yeah. And I think, you got to sort of get to know yourself a little bit and just decide how much structure you need and how much structure you want. Like for some people, I know they make an ideal week 1 week in advance, and every week they make a new ideal week, and they really schedule out literally their following week around their appointments and various commitments. And for some people, that level of planning is really helpful. And for others like Ethan and myself, I just like to have a general sense of what I'm doing every day, and then I can sort of move around that. But what it really helps do is eliminate decisions. At any given moment, you don't have to decide what you're doing. You've already made those decisions, and you just look at your ideal week and it's like, oh, okay, now it's breakfast time. That's what I'm doing. Now it's work time. So can help with the decision fatigue that a lot of people who are new at self-directed learning face, which is like always having to decide what you're going to do next. And in that vein, I wanted to share one more tool with you. And if you've been in one of my courses before, you've probably seen this, but it's called the 3 things. And this is a list of 3 things that you want to accomplish on any given day. And what 3 things has helped me do, and I'll explain what the tool is in a second, but what the 3 things has helped me do is design a productive routine. So every day I have 3 things that I want to do. And has helped me sort of take control of creating a productive, of my daily routine, such that I'm creating a productive routine. So here's how it works. Every day at the end of the day, and actually I've already done mine for tomorrow because I had a funny day. At the end of every day, I make a list of 3 things that I want to do the following day. Tomorrow I have 6 things. This is unrealistic. It's not going to happen, but I needed to keep track of them somewhere. Normally I do 3. And I also, on the back of the paper, sometimes I didn't do this today, I write down 3 things that I'm not going to do. And this is just really nice about the day before, thinking about the day that's coming, the day ahead, and what are the realistic goals that you can accomplish in the following day. And I like to focus, when I'm setting goals for the following day, on process over results. So instead of saying tomorrow, that I'm going to finish chapter 3 of my podcast, I'll say, I'm going to work on chapter 3 of my podcast for 1 hour. And then once that 1 hour is done, I can check it off my list and move on.
Taya's asking in the chat box, what are some of those things that you put on your won't do list? And I have some thoughts on this. I have some things that I have on my don't do list, but I want to hear yours.
Well, mine's a little morbid, but like one thing that's really in the back of my mind right now is that I'm trying to draft my will. And I think the pandemic brought up like, oh my God, what if I die? So I really, really want to draft my will. But often, it's an open loop and it's taking up creative space in the back of my mind. Mm-hmm. And so in order to close that creative loop on any given day, sometimes I put that on my I'm not doing today list. And it helps me just set it aside, make a boundary, and then I can focus on the more immediate things that I want to do.
A big one for me is like, I like to play whack-a-mole with my email and like just go, oh, I'm going to get these emails down to 0. I can do it. And one of the things that like tomorrow, and I do a variation on this, it's sometimes I'll do like a series of things, but tomorrow I have one thing that I want to do. I've got this course content that I need to create. And so the one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to record videos for this course and as many as I can. That's not a very specific one, but I'm just going to basically jam on it. And the thing that I'm not going to do is I'm not going to try and get my emails down to 0 tomorrow. So just another example of that.
Yeah. And making this list the day before the following day is actually really helpful because studies have shown that when you make a list, when you make your schedule for the following day, 1 day in advance, it can help you get better sleep. And it's just something about the way that we're hardwired, that unfinished tasks take up more processing space in our minds than finished tasks. And so we can tend to dwell on them. And so if you get them out of your mind and onto a piece of paper, it actually helps your brain relax, power down, get a good night's sleep, and then you can come back to that following day. So again, these suggestions will be in our follow-up doc tomorrow, but 3 things has been a really helpful one for me. And this is my superpower, yo. Every day, new Post-it note. All right. The next thing we were going to do is talk about working in groups. Oh, no, there's one more thing about organizing your time, and that is rewarding yourself. So I like to set up little rewards for myself for staying on track. Or I like to set up rewards for myself along the way that sort of give me little bits of like a positive dopamine boost. So for example, I have the goal of being at my desk every day at 9 a.m. and I've got my morning routine set up, and then I come to my desk, and every time I come to my desk, I bring a cup of tea, and I really enjoy that cup of tea. It's like a ritual that makes arriving at my workspace and my work day a more pleasant experience. So that's like one example of like a really small reward. Sometimes when I'm working with college essay students on their essays, and they've got a really hard essay to write, I'll say like, okay, this one's going to be really hard. What I want you to do while you're writing this essay is eat ice cream. Make yourself a treat, like something you really enjoy. Take a bowl of ice cream and eat ice cream while you write this essay because it will help you through this difficult process. And so if you've got like a big thing that's sort of like intimidating, and school projects can be like this, I remember them. If there's that one like report that you've got to write and it's really sort of daunting you can set yourself up with a treat that will make that process, that will sort of lure you into the process. The other thing is you can organize your day around the level of difficulty, the tasks. You can organize the tasks by level of difficulty. And I suggest doing the most difficult ones first. So once you've done that, then the rest of your day is open time. So for my daughter, when she was homeschooling in the spring, and she's going to be again this fall, she's 9, so she doesn't have a lot of schoolwork, but every day it was really important that for me that she do a little bit of math. So we would, from 9 to 9:30, just do math every day. And after that, math isn't her favorite subject. She's sort of like, it's like avoiding it. But after that, then the rest of the day she could read, we could hang out, we could play outside, she could meet with her friends on Zoom, but the math was done. And so there were rewards at the end of that. Those are the treats. Yeah, so reward yourself for doing a good job. And again, it's sort of like getting out of that negative loop. Like there's a potential for like a negative loop to form where you sort of procrastinate, you feel like you're out of control, and then you get a little bit upset with yourself, and then you're like, oh, I'm no good at this. And that can sort of lead to this spiral of like shame or self-loathing even. I've been through it a million times. And so these are all just little tricks to like break that loop and jump up into a higher sort of level of thinking and doing, and really trying to change those habits so that you can sort of then change your self-conception.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the things that's coming up in the chat box, folks are asking, how do I stay focused during Zoom lectures? My mind wanders around a lot. I feel agitated. What do I do? One of the things that I want to say to y'all is like, one thing I do is like, just get up and move. If you feel like you're like, especially if you've been sitting a long time, is just move and stretch. I've got this little,
yeah, just saying that, I'm like, oh yeah.
A trigger point thing, like a little roller that I'll just like roll on. And so just getting up a couple times a day and move. The other thing is like, sometimes, how you have your, like, it could be that you're actually uncomfortable how your desk is positioned. So I've experimented a lot with like standing desk, and like, sometimes it could be like your chair. Like I've seen folks like switch to a yoga ball so they could like, kind of exercise their core. So ask yourself if there's something physically that you can do to kind of adjust. The other thing is, I just don't think that we should be like, if your mind wanders, like it's going to wander, like that's going to happen. I don't know that you should be focused, especially if the content is like not super engaging, which is going to happens to me all the time on Zoom calls, especially if someone's talking to me. So I'm like trying to figure out ways to like stay focused, and my mind's going to wander. So I guess what I'd say is like, moving is one. Also, that's just going to happen, and let it wander. And then kind of like meditation, just kind of try and bring your attention back. But I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts on that, Bonnie?
Well, if it's something you're really interested in and you do want to be present for the Zoom call, you can just close your internet browser or whatever screen might be distracting you. Like if you're finding that distraction is the thing that's pulling you out of whatever reading you might be in, you can just set some boundaries around it. But I think also, yeah, we're really not made for this much time, on screens. It's really hard. It's a demanding moment on our attention, I think, and we have to use really positive self-talk to sort of just allow it to be a difficult moment. Like sometimes what I do is I talk to myself in the third person. So I'll be like, Bonnie, it's a really difficult thing you're being asked to do, to sit on Zoom calls for 4 hours a day. Why don't you go easy on yourself and just like stop beating yourself up about this?
Right.
And that can help me.
Yeah. Oh, here's a good one. We can save this one for the Q&A, but Carol's asking, what are some ways to keep younger children on task during school? Boy, if you figure that one out, Carol, will you please let us know?
Yeah.
We'll kick around some thoughts, maybe in just to bring Bonnie and I talk about, because we both have young ones that are, in Zoom land. But anyway, Bonnie, sorry, let me let you get back.
All right. Well, the fifth technique we were going to touch on was, don't work alone. And I've been a freelancer now for, 6 years. And I've worked a lot alone. And what I decided recently in the last year is I'm not going to work alone anymore. I'm only collaborating. Because when I work alone, I'm less efficient. My ideas aren't as good. I get lonely. Sometimes I get distracted. Sometimes I feel a sense of despair. It can get lonely. We're not made for that. Or some more than others, but I'm not made for it. I'm pretty extroverted. So I've made the commitment that I'm no longer working alone. I'm only working in teams. And so I've set up systems to collaborate. Even when I'm working on a project that only I'm involved with, sometimes I'll reach out to a friend and say, hey, can you be my accountability buddy for this project? And that just helps me have a sense of companionship and camaraderie and just company. And, I'm the kind of person, like I said, that thinks better in collaboration. So when I'm bouncing around ideas with another person, even just the act of articulating the problem I'm facing helps me solve that problem in a more creative way.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a couple tools for finding those people. Ethan, do you want to talk about Accountability Buddy?
Yeah. So one thing that there was somebody that I admired from a distance whose resources and stuff, who's kind of she's in the kind of what's called the authentic relating world, named Sarah. And I was like, kind of, I reached out to her and I was like, hey, I'd love to just chat with you sometime, pick your brain. And we connected. And I thought, this would be a cool person to just connect with more. And I kind of want an accountability buddy. So she was working on a project. I was working on a project. I was like, hey, would you be down to just be accountability buddies? And what that would look like would basically be, and because I'd done this before, but it was like, we basically have a shared Google Doc. And you have, you can be both on one doc, or you can have separate ones, and you have access to each other's. And you just basically write, hey, so there are two ways of doing this. One is you can do a basic blank Google Doc where you go, here's the thing that I want to get done over the course of 30 days. I call this a 30 days doc. This was especially useful for me when I was starting to develop a voiceover career, which is a whole separate thing. But I was like, okay, so what I want to do is I want to develop all the content for my voiceover reel before I record it. And so what I would do is I would just do one thing per day, and I would just be like, June 1st, and here's the thing. And then I would move it down, and then June 2nd, and then I'd write the thing that I did. And my buddy would check in, whenever she had time. This was a different buddy before. And, make comments. Oh, wow, awesome. Celebrating. That's great. Or, oh, have you thought about this and this? Just kind of on Google Docs, again, on our own time. And then with Sarah, when I met her in 2018 or 2019, I was like, hey, would you be down to do this? She said, sure. We ended up doing it on a spreadsheet. And it turned into this tracker that I'm going to share with you in just a second, that ended up turning into a 1.5 year accountability relationship where whatever we were working on, we just put it on the doc. And then we would just kind of write one thing that we were doing for each day. And then we started to add our personal goals. So first it was just work. And then I was like, you know what? I want to I want to meditate more. And so I would write down if I meditate or not. So I wrote all this stuff down, and then it turned into 2 columns. And then it turned into, I'm going to show you what it turned into. And this is going to be overwhelming for some of you, especially if you don't like spreadsheets. But this is my 2019 tracker. And probably too small to see, but one of the things, the habits that I was trying to create was checking my to-do list each day. And so did I do it or not? And then, once you do it after a while, you get in the flow. And then here's one thing. V is my wife. That's my wife's initial. What is the one thing that I'm doing to be in that and support and, give to that relationship? Did I wake up at 5:30 a.m.? This is when I was a superhuman. Now I get up at 8 like other people. Did I meditate? If so, how many minutes? One big thing. What was the one main thing I was going to focus on? So book work for one day, Zola day with my daughter for another one, family day, teaching a counselor course. What's the one thing I did with my daughter or for my daughter? How much time did I spend on my book? Did I eat healthy? Did I do caffeine or not? Etc. It kept going. I know this is going to be crazy. And you guys were like, this is insane. And I was actually filling this out month by month. You can look at the tabs on the bottom. I actually did this for 1.5 years. And at the top, my work goal for the month was to send Chris, who's my editor, a rough draft of my book by February 21st. And then my personal goal was to lose 5 pounds more. I'd done that the month before, and I was like, hey, I'd love to, lose 5 more pounds. So one of my goals was eat healthy, which is mostly a plant-based diet. And it worked, y'all. I mean, I feel like I got a bunch done. I can look back and be like, wow, look at all that cool stuff I got. I'm not doing that currently because it's kind of peak college essay season. So I spend all my time. It would just be did I work on college essays and thinking about college essays for 8 hours a day? Yes or no? And the answer is always yes. So, this is sort of a seasonal thing, and it sort of helps when there's a little bit more flexibility. But that's a tool that I've used.
Yeah, I've used it too. Actually, Ethan taught me this, maybe 6 months ago. And I started meeting with an accountability buddy, but with a spreadsheet to build my website for my business. And just doing one little thing every day, creates that sense of momentum. And then it's even if it's just 30 minutes, it's oh yeah, I'm in the groove. I'm doing this.
And we check in, by the way, my accountability buddy and I, we would check in, once a week for basically the whole time. And it turned into 1.5 years, which is the longest accountability buddy. I've had 6 or 8 of these relationships, and, they will serve you for a time. And then at times it's I think she ended up being busy or I ended up being busy and we stopped meeting, but I can see myself doing that again someday. So anyway.
Yeah. You can also do this in a group. And you can do it in pairs, but you can do it in groups. You can have accountability groups where you meet once a week to go through your goals and support each other in reaching them. You can also do co-working sessions. And again, that right now is tending to happen on Zoom, which you may or may not give you energy. Mm-hmm. But just having another person present, even via a screen while you're working, I think can be really helpful and, again, generate higher quality ideas.
Yeah. Sarah's asking in the chat box, what are some ways I can feel more accomplished at the end of the day? So
mm-hmm.
Sarah, one simple thing you can do, if you do a to-do list at the start of the day, at the end of your day, do a done list. In other words, what are some of the things that you've done? And just do, I mean, you can call it a gratitude list or whatever, but just like, because oftentimes it's like, we got 30 things on our list and we do like 20, we're like, we're thinking about the 10 that we didn't do, right? Or like, even if it's like 8 things and we did 6 of them, we're like looking at the 2 that we didn't do. So just, if you take a minute, I try and take a minute to go, okay, here, that's why I created this tracker, so that I could kind of see, I am doing a lot, to sort of remind myself that I am enough and I am doing enough, which is my, personal growth work, is like reminding myself that I'm enough. So instead of just a to-do list, do a done list potentially at the end of the day.
Totally. I also, on my 30-day spreadsheet, when I accomplish a goal, one of my larger monthly goals, I highlight that box in blue, and it gives me a little bit of like a gamified feeling where I'm like, score, point, blue on my spreadsheet. And the more blue, the happier I get. There's different ways you could sort of reward yourself that could be really small.
Yeah.
Well, I want to open it up to Q&A, but I was going to tell the students quickly about the Uncommon Autumn course that I am facilitating starting next week. And this is a venue where we're going to be practicing a lot of these skills and supporting each other and getting stuff done. And those could be school-related projects, setting school-related goals, or they could be extracurricular or self-directed. And so we're thinking a lot about what our values are and where we want to spend our time, and then making progress towards goals that we set ourselves. But I think the tools we're using are a lot of things that Ethan and I are talking about today. They're in a similar vein. In fact, some of these tools are in the course. And it's just about supporting each other in creating productive, creative, sort of healthy routines. Should I maybe jump onto the landing page? Can I screen share, Ethan?
Yep, do it. Thanks for asking. It's like a webinar etiquette. May I screen share? Yes, you may. Thanks for asking.
May I screen share?
And if it's not working for you for some reason, I can do it.
Looks like it's here.
Works.
So this is the Uncommon Autumn landing page, and the course will take place over 12 weeks. So it's 3 months long. And we're going to meet every other Tuesday for 90 minutes. And we're going to have live workshop sessions. So this is the program overview here. And there will be content on-demand videos. We'll do a lot of exercises, and you'll have a workbook to complete your exercises. And then the live sessions will really be used to get to know each other, to build community, to brainstorm and workshop each other's ideas, to troubleshoot when problems come up, and to share both struggles and successes. So celebrate when things go well. We also have a bonus module here in session 6 on marketing. I taught this course over the summer, and there were numerous requests for, how do I get word out that I'm doing this really cool project? So we're gonna have a session on marketing. There will be, this is me, hi. There will be 2 special guests. My friend Pete Senyan's coming for the marketing module, and Ethan's gonna be there for our first session, where we're going to be getting to know each other and building community. The thing I'm most excited about, and I'm gonna exit screen share so I can share a different application, is that we are launching a Discord community. I feel so funny when I talk about this, because I know that likely if you're between the ages of 14 and 17, you know way more about Discord than I do. But we are going to use Discord as a platform for collaboration. And I'm just going to show you, I'm going to screen share again. Here's Discord, and here's the Uncommon Creative Community. And this is a space where students can, just hang out and have fun and get to know each other. When we taught the course in the summer, there was a lot of desire, I think, for students to collaborate and get to know each other. But the webinar platform wasn't very conducive to students connecting one-on-one. So this is a place where students can make connections and leverage peer-to-peer support. So there's all kinds of fun things we're going to do here. We're going to have accountability buddies. So everybody who takes part in the course will have the opportunity to connect with somebody else in the course to do the accountability buddy spreadsheet and meetings. All the course announcements will be here. And then there are voice channels that also double as video channels where students can get together in groups and work on their projects and help each other troubleshoot when challenges arise, because inevitably challenges arise. So that's the Discord community.
One of the questions that's popped in from Sue is, pitching and marketing. This sounds like freelancers. Like, in what case are high schoolers going to have to be pitching and marketing? Like, how is it affect high schoolers?
Well, I think there are different ways we could use this course. And one of the ways is just support in meeting school-related goals. And in that case, you don't really need pitching and marketing. However, another way that you could use this course is to set a goal of your own that's self-directed. So we're calling this self-directed learning. And self-directed learning is a little bit different than most school-related learning in that you set your own goals and the project really comes from your own imagination and internal motivation. And so when you're creating something new and original, that's when you really need pitching and marketing. And man, you should see high schoolers these days. They're like really ambitious and accomplishing some incredible things. And I don't want to add pressure to this time because we are already under so much pressure, so many of us. And I don't want this to feel like another thing that people have to do. But there are certain students who thrive outside of the structured environment of school and who could use this time of the pandemic and of school being online where they have more discretionary time to really expand on their creative lives or on their community service or on their community building in whatever community they belong to. And so for some students, this is an opportunity that can be maybe a positive turning point where because we have so much more discretionary time, you can sort of pivot to places in your life where you're really doing what you love.
Jackie asks, is the class for high school kids only, or would it be okay for college kids taking a gap semester? And I'll take that one and I'll say, it would be awesome. I think this is like perfect for taking a gap semester. I mean, especially if you're still kind of figuring out what it is you're wanting to do and wanting to focus on. You might have a really clear plan, or maybe you've got some stuff planned out, but you're looking for a little more direction. This would be kind of a community where you could like find support in that. So,
yeah, and I think a gap semester is a great idea right now. If online classes aren't doing it for you and you're not getting a lot out of it, taking some time off right now to focus on other goals where you develop your intellectual interests or vitality and showing your curiosity and pursuing those things is a great use of time right now.
Yeah. Jackie's asking, what about kids who are shy? Do you have to do the social part?
I mean, we have what Blake Bowles, he's a self-directed learner coach. He calls them lurkers. You could lurk in this course and still get a lot out of it. And so I think there were a number of students in the summer version of this course that weren't very active in the chat box or, in the email exchanges, but still got a lot out of the course. It's all voluntary. None of the homework is mandatory. Nobody will be put on the spot to perform in front of the group. Right. It's all voluntary.
Caitlin asks, in terms of collaboration, how do you stop yourself from turning a work conversation into a social conversation and losing track of time? And I have just a couple quick thoughts about it, Caitlin. One is like, decide if you're going to have a work conversation or a social conversation, or do a check-in and set a timer and decide that you're going to, you know, put a boundary around it. Like say, you know what I'm going to do? Let's just check in for 5 minutes, and then we'll set this timer. And then when it goes off, and that might feel kind of artificial, but it'll help separate things. And I think it's also good to just set boundary in terms of times, like how long are we going to talk about this? Because let's say you go, okay, let's talk about work for 20 minutes. You know, on my project, we'll talk 20 minutes on yours, and then we'll hang out if we want to hang out. Okay, so like just I find that time in terms of that is just really, really awesome and really useful, because you want to give time for the other stuff, but you know, you don't want a timer on the hanging out part. So anyway, timers. So Sue says, I'm still confused about pitching and marketing things. So Sue, let me give you a quick example. So let's say a student loves photography and they want to create a photography website, and they decide, you know, hey, I'm going to create this thing, and they create their photography website. Or actually, a better example would probably be like a project. Let's say that a student is interested in, I'm thinking of like a couple different examples. They've created something that they want to pitch to their school board. They've got, you know, an idea for a recycling program, or they've got an idea for a, you know, an app or a way to revamp the school website. Part of what they'll need to do in order to convince the stakeholders of doing that is like put together a pitch. You know, what are the reasons? How do you make sure that you succinctly express that? So that would be in the pitching. In terms of the marketing, and if someone's like, let's say they've started a photography business on the side, probably less so in COVID, but let's say they've started like a, you know, tutoring and want to get the word out about tutoring, and they want to create a website. And so that would be kind of in the marketing thing. So this is sort of for some of those like extracurricular projects that students might be working on.
And we've really sort of said marketing and pitching are totally optional. They're not inherent to the project themselves, and they're actually really quite different skill sets. And the bulk of the course, what we're trying to teach, are really those tools for setting goals and getting stuff done.
We'll print out more info on this. Let's do one more question. How can we make sure this is really specific from Levi. How can we make sure workloads are evenly divided on group projects? Oh man. So I always feel like I end up with the short end of the stick doing extra work. Well, one, Levi, would be just doing clear agreements at the start and just have them written out and be like, here, X person is going to work on, you know, A, and Y person is going to work on B, and Z person is going to work on C. And, you know, and then potentially have regular check-ins. You know, let's say it's a month-long project, or even if it's a week-long project, just say, hey, here's a little thing. Would you all be willing to just check in with the thing that you're doing? And I know that feels like sometimes you're having to play taskmaster, but you could, you know, decide. One of the things that's worked for me, this was like after high school, is deciding who's going to be like the project manager. And that person their role is just to like make sure that people are doing their work and checking in on them and reminding them to do that. So that could be like one task for one of the people. Maybe one of the person who's doing a little bit less work could name themselves project manager. It's kind of like product manager, and just be the taskmaster to make sure that the thing actually gets done. There's a cool method of organizing things called Darcy, DARCI, that you can look up. That's a cool model of like management teams, the decision maker, who's accountable, who's responsible, who gets consulted, and who needs to be informed, DARCI. And that's a cool model that I've seen for like just making sure that stuff gets done. It's a little corporate, you know, sort of, but it's a good way of thinking about that. And you can kind of apply that to any project. So that's what I got. Well, thanks. This was fun.
Yeah, we're at time.
Great to see you.
It's really fun. But yeah, I think, you know, it's a strange time. The most important thing I would say is go really easy on yourself. It's, you know, these are all tools for productivity, but productivity is not a measure of our self-worth. And we just, I think, have to also be really as kind to ourselves as we are to other people, and just every day start new, and not, you know, not get too hard on ourselves when things don't go as planned.
Yeah, we're getting some thanks. Thanks to you all. Thanks for coming in and hanging out with us for an hour. And we'll follow up with all the resources and more information on Uncommon Autumn if you want to hang out with Bonnie some more in the next couple months. So thanks, y'all. And thanks, Bonnie. I appreciate you.
Yeah, likewise, Ethan. I'm glad you made it in. Thanks, everybody.
Me too. Bye, y'all.